Hello, crafters and artisans, and welcome back to Psychedelic Squid Fiber Arts. Today I'm going to show you how to disassemble a spinning wheel that has been glued together. Now, first and foremost, this method only works with wheels that have been glued together with the PVA type wood glue. If the wheel has been glued together with epoxy, this method won't work. If you're not sure what kind of glue was used, wood glue tends to be yellow and opaque, and it can be dissolved by acetone, while epoxy is usually clear and won't dissolve in acetone. To get started, you'll need acetone. Gloves. I used household cleaning gloves, as the internet gave me mixed results on what type of gloves to use with acetone. You'll also need a box cutter or X-Acto knife. I recommend both because they each work better for different things. A paint scraper, a hammer, a mini pry bar, and potentially a nail puller, a rubber mallet, and metal punches if your wheel has dowels. Alright, so please note that the amount of acetone you'll likely have to use to dissolve the glue in the joints will be enough to ruin any existing finish. I personally didn't even try to salvage the finish on this wheel because I was taking this wheel apart to refinish it, which I'll cover in a future video. I also thankfully didn't have to deal with a glued drive band tension screw, so I don't cover that specifically in this video. Starting off, you should get a really good video or photo of your wheel so you know how to reassemble it later. Next, remove any pieces that aren't glued down. So for me, this included the distaff, the drive band tension screw with the rear maiden bearing, the flyer assembly, which I disassembled here to make sure it wasn't glued together. Next, I moved on the wood pins that hold the drive wheel in place. Using a metal punch and hammer, I slowly knocked these out. When you do this, if you have to, make sure the punch is in line with the pin, as you can see from this angle. I did this for both sides, and then the drive wheel just comes up and out at an angle. Now, for the legs, I marked them each with hatch marks, indicating which leg is which. One leg will have no marks, one will have one hatch mark, and the other will have two. I do this to make sure that they line up later when I reassemble this wheel so I don't get the placement wrong. I had these wood caps on top of my legs, so I just used my box cutter to pry up the wood a little. Then I used my scraper to pry these up more, and then I used my mini pry bar to remove it the rest of the way. Now for the legs, which were glued in place. Just a quick heads up, this process will take time, and if you try to rush it, you could break something, so go slow and steady. First, I soaked the joint with a heavy amount of acetone. Sorry, my hand kind of blocks this, but I'm using a popsicle stick to direct the acetone towards the joint. Then I'm going to use my X-Acto knife and carve away the glue in the space between the leg and the base. As the glue dissolves, it turns into a gummy paste that will reharden when the acetone dries, so you might need to reapply the acetone several times before the glue is fully dissolved. Thankfully, with a little bit more coaxing using my X-Acto knife, the leg pops free when I give it a few whacks from my finishing hammer. The treadle was glued and nailed to the treadle support. So to start, I cut away at the glue and used my scraper to help pry up the treadle away from the treadle support. Once I have enough room, I use my mini pry bar to fully pry the treadle off. Now for the nails, I used my favorite curved nail puller. But for the nail stuck in the treadle support, I couldn't use it directly on the wood without damaging it. So I used the side of my scraper as a support so I didn't damage the wood. Okay. Now for my extremely difficult drive wheel supports. These took forever because I had to soak them repeatedly to remove them simultaneously because they were connected at the top. So an acetone soak followed initially by the X-Acto knife for both sides. Then more acetone and the box cutter. I ended up going back and forth between the acetone and the box cutter probably 5 to 6 times. Finally, I created just enough room to get the edge of my scraper under the drive wheel supports. I used more acetone and tried again and again to pry them up further with the scraper, but I wasn't making any progress, so I added a little bit of brute force. Using the flat side of the scraper against the base, I wedged the edge of the scraper underneath the support and hammered it further in to forcibly separate the joint. I did this very slowly with only 1 or 2 whacks for each time I did it for both sides, and I made sure to go all the way around the bottom of each support to evenly pry up the wood. I went back and forth between each side, slowly raising them maybe 1/8 of an inch. I also marked these so I know how to reassemble them later. Then, once I had created enough room, I used my mini pry bar to slowly pull these up, making sure I didn't put too much pressure on either one of them. Then, here, the base is actually two separate pieces. So, for this joint, I started with my box cutter going all the way around the joint. I used acetone on this piece, which I forgot to film. Then, I used my scraper. I began to slowly pry these two pieces apart. It's really important that when you do this, you pay attention to what you're leveraging against, because you can damage one piece while trying to pry apart another. Again, I slowly pried this piece apart, going all the way around it until I could get my mini pry bar to finish separating these pieces. Sometimes you'll have pieces that come apart like this one, which was surprisingly quick and easy. With one short acetone soak all the way around and a quick twist, these pieces came apart. Here's another one that didn't let go as easily and required multiple soaks from different angles and the use of a box cutter and scraper. I have to say, most glue joints took somewhere in the range of 5 to 7 minutes to pry apart, aside from the drive wheel supports, which took like 30. Finally, I finished disassembling the wheel, and here it is, ready to be stripped. Please leave any questions in the comments section below, and thank you all so much for exploring the depths of your creativity with me, and I'll see you next time.